Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hello and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. This is the first episode of season 2 starting in 2025. So I'm super happy to be here, and I am really excited to introduce my guest today, Katie Richardson. She is on a mission to create powerful leaders with a background in design. Katie built a multi-million-dollar international company with distribution in 2,000 stores in the US and 26 countries. Her work has been featured on Ellen DeGeneres, The Today Show, and Rachel Ray, and she's also been featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. Today, as an executive business coach, Katie teaches founders and CEOs the mindset, skill sets, and tool sets you need to powerfully operate in business and life so that you can live with purpose and do what you were born to do. I love that. Hi, Katie.
I believe it. Hi, Anne-Marie. How are you? So great to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. And I am so excited to talk about, first off, I want to know about what I read in your bio. Okay, so I know a little bit about you from
Sure.
my coach, we were talking before I started recording, my coach, Josh Forty, was coached by Katie, so we know we're in good hands here. But when you say, or when your bio says design, can you talk about that a little? What were you designing exactly? You said it said store, so I'm guessing it was something like a product. So please tell us about that.
Yeah, in college, I studied industrial design, and that is really the design of everyday goods, whether that's car design or products that you would purchase at a store. It's kind of this artistic engineer, if you will. And it's really taking into consideration the interaction between the human and the object. And so really thinking about form and beauty and function, all of those variables in one, right? An engineer is very much looking at the math of a product, whereas a designer is looking kind of zooming out more and looking at all of it. How does it function? How do you interact with it? And so the way that that plays into what I do today, coaching, which is so interesting, Anne-Marie, my head spins when I think about where I am in my life today. I'm living in Puerto Rico. I'm an executive business coach. And, young Katie, who went to college, felt like a good for nothing and felt like she didn't fit in. And the traditional path that her 3 older siblings had taken in college just was not for her. Not that there was something wrong with that. But, I wasn't going to be an English major. And what I didn't realize at the time is I had so many ideas that were just wanting to spill out of me, and I just needed the right skill set to bring those ideas into the world. And so, that's how I got into business. I wasn't the kind that your typical type A who was, I'm ready to conquer the world. That wasn't me. And
right.
You probably mentioned that I've been on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine. And what's interesting is that article is called The Accidental Entrepreneur. And I just love problem solving. I love a complicated puzzle and figuring out how it goes together. And so in my younger years, that meant I was using those design skills to create products. But what's so fascinating still to me is those same skills of problem solving, innovating, creating a solution where one doesn't exist. That's what I'm doing every day with executives in their business, in their partnerships, in their product development, in their marketing. I help people with a whole suite of problems and issues, but it comes down to the fundamentals, which is I'm building a business and I need a solution here, whether it's a person or a product, and that I don't know what that solution needs to be. And so I'm really good at helping my entrepreneurs really define what that ideal solution would be, and then helping them reverse engineer to create that solution.
That's amazing. And I love that. I love that story, but I want to know, how did you know, or how did you segue from design
Mhm.
to know, okay, wait a second, I can take this skill set and I can
Yeah.
help entrepreneurs. Like, what was that journey like, and what kind of led you on that path?
It was excruciating. It was terrifying. It
I don't mean
felt
to
like,
laugh, but that's not what I thought you were going to
no,
say.
I know. It wasn't clear. It wasn't obvious. It felt like death in a lot of ways because I had spent about 10 years building up and developing a brand that had distribution in the US and 26 different
Yeah.
countries.
Yeah.
I was, featured on the Today Show, the um, Ellen DeGeneres show. Like my brand and my products had like really kind of made me feel like I was somebody in the
Yeah.
world.
Okay.
And it reached the point where I felt, well, we weren't even looking to sell it. We were looking for a strategic partner. Somebody made a much big offer, an offer we couldn't refuse. And so we, on faith, just did the deal and kind of leaped into the unknown. And what I didn't realize on the other side of that, Anne Marie, would be kind of this loss of purpose, loss of identity. And I had had some earlier experiences that helped me be fairly detached from my business. But as far as like my time and my attention, it wasn't clear what that next vehicle was. But I did feel strongly I needed to do coaching. But what you might not know about me is my nature is to be unsure of myself and shy. Actually, I wouldn't say that's my nature. That was developed at a very young age. And to second guess myself. And so to make this really big move of exiting my company and then leaping into this whole new industry, what I didn't realize until I started stepping in that direction was the amount of internal opposition I would immediately be facing, starting with my shower in the morning, and my head would just beat me up and it would say, "Who do you think you are? Who gives
Ah,
you the right to tell somebody else what to do in their business?" And so every day I would face this, and it was excruciating. And I felt like an imposter. I felt like I'd made a big mistake. I didn't feel qualified. And yet I would pull up Facebook and do a Facebook Live and tell people about how I could help them. And as I'm saying all of
but
that on Facebook Lives, my head's beating me up saying, "You look stupid today. You're such an idiot. You fumbled over your words just now." And so much of what I do today, Anne Marie, is there's so much to share here, but ultimately what I figured out is how to build my business from the inside out and to address that internal dialogue and to strengthen it and to direct it and be intentional with it and develop it and mature it, right? It was beating me up like a bully on the recess on the playground, and I had to mature that internal voice. And so, I mean, we can go into it, but I basically have a 5-step framework that helps you build your business from the inside out. And when you do this, and you've witnessed this with Josh 40, when you do this, you separate yourself from the competition just as a byproduct. And you develop your business in a way where it's fun, it's sustainable, and it's super meaningful. It lights you up because you're doing the thing that you feel called to do.
oh my God,
So was
I
that
love
all
that.
over the place?
Yeah,
But
no, no. I love everything that you just said, but what I love the most, well, first off, let me start by saying that all of us, the fact that somebody in your position and you're so successful, but you suffer with imposter syndrome, just like all of us do. I do every day, right? But what is so amazing about what you just said is that you still showed up. Like, you
yeah,
still, even though you felt that way, you still went live on Facebook. You didn't let
yeah.
it stop you, And so I can see how you're able to help other people because you were able to get through that yourself. And yes, I would
Mhm.
love to hear about the framework. But first I want to ask you, you said that when you were younger that this wasn't really you, like
No.
that you, no, not at all, right? So that kind of leads to the idea of this show, right? Is because we're all, and I say crazy in the
Yeah,
best way possible, but we're all like these crazy entrepreneurs, right? That like
sure.
don't adhere to like the normal, like living in a box, punching time cards, etc. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
do you think that it was unlikely that you would end up an entrepreneur when you were younger? Did people not maybe expect that, or do you think that that was sort of in your nature from the beginning? Tell me about that.
I think it's always been in my nature to carve my own path, but I do
Yeah.
it in a unique way. Like I wasn't a rebel growing up. I was like a very good, honest, kind, loving, not that someone who's a rebel isn't any of those things, but I actually stayed within the rules that my parents gave me, which is
Okay.
great and awesome. And I'm super grateful for that. But sometimes those same rules and guidelines, while well intended, as you mature, they become ultra limiting.
Mhm.
And as I developed, I had to understand how, like, the spirit of those guidelines, because Picasso is a really great example of this. He learned how to paint just like all of the masters. But if he continued to paint like all of the masters, he would have been a nobody and none of us would have heard him or seen him, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he first understood all of the rules and why they existed and developed himself within those frameworks, and then learned how to sort of break the rules and take the ideas and the visions and the creativity that he had within him that was unique to him. And I think that's what's so important here. And give himself permission to start breaking the rules of the masters. Again, not as a form of rebellion, but it's a form of creation. And that's what I had to learn how to do. And business, turns out, is a really powerful vehicle for you to do that in a way where it adds value into the world. You create something that's meaningful. It requires you to develop as a leader. It was like all the things that I was searching for in my own life. I like everything that I do, Anne Marie, comes down to this. I believe that we are formed and created by a superior being, and that there is greatness that's unique and special to you and every one of us, right? We all have
Yeah.
something that's different within us, and it is our opportunity to come into the world and bring that brilliance, that gift, that magic into the world. And business is a really powerful vehicle to do that. And that's what drives me, is I'm so radically curious about that gift within myself and then that gift within you. Like, I want to see it, Anne Marie. I want to bring it into the world because it's special and we need it.
I Oh my God, I love that. I love that. So do you want to talk about the framework that you were mentioning
Yeah.
earlier in your
Yeah.
answer? I'm sure everyone listening would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the way that I started to discover this, it was a multi-year journey discovering this. But as I was developing my own business, I was developing products, but I had to do it in secret because I wanted to patent them. And if you're going
Okay.
to patent and trademark something, you can't already have it on the market, so to speak. And so
Right.
I was
Okay.
developing these products in secret. And so for 2 years, like, I didn't have revenue from these products, right? So we were living on food storage and just living off of our
Well, can I
savings. And
interrupt you for 1 second?
yeah,
Just hold that thought real quick. Are there any products that you created that we would know?
yeah. I mean, the superstar product that everybody knows us for, it's called the Pudge Tub, spelled Pujtub. And it's been featured on the Ellen DeGeneres show, the Rachel Ray show, the Today Show. I mean, celebrities have been caught with the product under their arm, and it's been on
Oh, that's
reality TV
awesome.
shows. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the
Okay.
product. It still exists today. I'm not a
Yep.
part of it anymore. You can go to
Yeah,
puj.com.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
That's awesome. Okay, sorry. Continue, please.
remind me what story I was telling you.
You were starting to tell us about the frameworks.
Oh, yes.
Oh, the
Okay. The
framework. Yeah.
frameworks. Okay.
Sorry.
So as you are developing a business, oh, and by the way, having kids, I think my
Oh yeah.
kids were like 1, 3, and 5 at the time. I have 4 now, but at the time we had 3.
Okay.
As I was embarking on this journey, honestly, it was just a journey of curiosity. I was just like, what's my potential? What could I actually do in this world? And I wanted to see how far I could push it. And so as I'm doing this, I'm getting some interest in some other products that were not patented. But anyways, when things finally took off, it like really took off. And all of a sudden, I went from feeling like I was pulling a little red wagon behind me to all of a sudden I'm strapped to a rocket ship headed to the moon. And it was such a contrast. And when you're pulling your little wagon, you dream of the day where I'm going to be on all of those publications and TV like I was talking. You dream about those days. But what you don't know is when that happens, it's extremely overwhelming. And I went from being a nobody and having nobody calling and nobody interested in buying my products because there wasn't really much to buy, to all of a sudden being on all of these, getting all of this attention that we were talking about. And what happens on the backside of that is complete and total overwhelm. And I was at this point where I couldn't sprint to keep up with it all anymore. And yet it feels like, well, this is a magical moment. I can't just step out of this and like put things on the back burner right now. This is when I have all this attention. So I have to take it while I have it. And yet, I've got a 1 and 3 and 5-year-old in my ankles. And so it's like all of it's just so overwhelming in a great way, but it just felt like this is not sustainable. And I reached this point, Anne-Marie, where it was like, I think I have to make a decision between the business or my family because we're not all going to survive this. And I think every entrepreneur, whatever your circumstances are, whatever your product, whatever your growth, we reach this point where it's like, I can't keep doing all of this, regardless of where the revenue's even at. Like we did $1 million in that first year. And so I reached this point. And I'm having this conversation in my head. And I'm just like, it's not sustainable. And I, in that moment, I started to see new possibility. And I realized that the way I was currently operating was actually the greatest limiter. It wasn't the fact that I had this complex business and 3 young kids. Like it actually, maybe it is possible. And like as a designer, you have to be really curious about possibility and the ideal solution. So rather than looking at my life as this isn't all working, I moved into a place of curiosity and I said, what would it look like if I was able to be present with my kids and selling to the biggest retailers in the world? Yeah. And I started to ask new questions. And what came as a byproduct is what I call the vital framework. Because I started to realize is there were key levers that if I focused on those pieces, then all the other pieces kind of fell into place or they didn't matter. They fell away. And if I could focus on these 5 pieces, then it becomes sustainable because I'm operating in a totally different way. So would you like me to hop into those 5 pieces?
I would love you to hop into those if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You go.
Okay. So VITAL is an acronym. The V stands for vision. You have to be really clear. What's that point on the horizon that you're moving towards? Too often, entrepreneurs are kind of wandering in the desert, bouncing around, jumping towards shiny objects.
So true.
You will continually chase your tail if you don't have that point on the horizon that keeps you grounded and clear on where you're going, right? Okay. Opportunities will continue to pop up, and if you just keep saying yes to everything, eventually everybody else gets what they want and need, and you're left with nothing. Okay. So you have to have a vision for where it is that you are going.
When you say vision, is that like a monetary vision or just a clear end goal?
Or could
it be both?
It's absolutely both. It is the clear parameters on what your ideal, for me, ideal business and life looks like. Okay. Because if you don't have those parameters, you end up building a business that becomes a monster in your life. And you're like, this is going to kill me. Yeah, right. So you need that combination of business and personal life. The next is the I stands for inspired path. This is a system to ensure that the way you get there is the way that aligns for you and your values. If you have a point on the horizon, there's maybe 1,000 ways you could get to that point on the horizon. The purpose of the inspired path is what is the path that aligns with you, that is true to your values, that becomes the life that you want, the path that you want to take. So do you have any questions on that one?
No, I love that one. No. Okay.
The next is the T. And what I learned is, early on, I was a great lone wolf, but you reach burnout really fast. So if you want to get to this incredible place on the horizon, you need a team who's going to support you, whether it's even a part-time assistant. If you want to build this life and business that are exciting, rewarding, fulfilling, sustainable, You need a team. And I've watched so many people build dysfunctional teams because we think, oh, I now have enough revenue in the business. I need to hire somebody to come do this thing that I've been doing. And they effectively start replacing themselves. But if you don't understand the team system, you're going to do it in a way where your team becomes maybe your greatest limiter, and they become really expensive and they don't know how to perform and effectively go after that vision.
The vision. Yeah.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. And it's so funny that you say that because not to talk about this is about you, but just real quick, that's the point that I'm at right now is
Yeah.
hiring a team. And it's so
Yes.
interesting that you say that, and it makes so much sense to make sure that the people that you hire are aligned with the vision and the
Mhm.
eye, the inspiring aspect of it. So I love that you
Yeah.
just said that.
Yeah. Yeah. A
So
really good example of this. One of my clients is a surgeon. He's world renowned. People flew all over the world to work with him. And he came to me and he said, I think I'm done. My team's driving me crazy. I don't like going into work anymore. And it was super sad because he's really talented. And yet his team had become these entitled, catty people who were
oh,
just clicky. And it was creating an environment that was the CEO himself didn't even want to go into the office. And so
wow.
he hired me and we started implementing all of Vital, including the team system. And he tells me now, we still speak once a week. And he was like, he gets giddy excited to go into the office because
Oh,
that's how much we've transformed his team. And they're truly supporting him to do the things that he wants and feels called to do. So that's the value of the team system. And
yep.
then the A stands for the aligned system. And this speaks to that internal division, kind of that inner critic that I was telling you about, the bully,
Yes.
the feeling that I'm a fraud. That's where we start with the aligned system. It's about creating alignment within the founder, the CEO, the leader first. And then once you are aligned and clear and grounded, then we extend this system to the team and we have you align with the team. And this is the journey that I've taken the surgeon through. And it's really incredible how, you know, in the beginning, I was hearing him say how hard it was to come into the office. And as we started to expand this system to his team, and I was in conversations with the team, I heard similar things like, this office is not good for my mental health. And it's so sad because, he's an incredible man who really cares about people, but he just didn't understand these systems. And so, today, same thing. Like I was in his office a few months ago, and one of his team members who had told me how bad the environment was for her mental health, she came and grabbed me and she said, I am thriving. My relationships at home are thriving. Like, thank you so much. I finally feel like I can really bring all of me to the office and I'm not walking on eggshells. So it's about
Wow.
this alignment within the leader first. Everything always starts at the top. So you have to start with the leader, the founder, the CEO, and we create alignment within them, and then we extend it out to the team, and it's really powerful, and it ends up permeating and creating this beautiful culture, and it allows you to build out your vision and your dream that you always imagined. And like that was the sadness and frustration he had is, as a young boy who grew up in war-torn Iran. I'm going into his story, but anyways, he had
Yeah.
like literally dodged bullets and landmines to end up to where he was in America and becoming this world renowned surgeon. And yet he was considering throwing in the towel and quitting it all because his team was so frustrating. There was so much toxicity on his team and he didn't know what to do, despite being a man of integrity, despite being so kind and generous. It just wasn't clear. And so that's what Vital did, is made it so clear. It was actionable steps that he and his operator could take to create this alignment with the team. And it's really powerful. And then the last piece is the L, the lead system. And, we've talked a little bit about kind of how I was growing up. And I always looked to somebody else to tell me what to do. And so when I was all of a sudden in charge of a company and people, it was terrifying to me, Anne Marie. It was like, wait, you want me to tell you what to do? And being a leader didn't feel natural and intuitive to me until I learned these core principles. And all of a sudden, my authentic nature had a place to to a framework to provide structure and clarity, so I knew what to do when it was a tough conversation or things didn't go the way that we had expected, or even just things like hiring and firing. These core principles within the lead system really helped me understand how to execute with my team and lead. And I really feel like this is the piece that kind of brings it all together. And I'll end with this. Like, we learn really exciting tips, tricks, and tactics in books and on YouTube and from people on stages. But what we so often miss is a much more important, deeper component, which isn't about what you're doing, it's who you are being.
Yeah.
And this is what the lead system really plays into. It's who are you being with your customers? Who are you being with your prospects? Who are you being with your team? And then for me personally, it always comes down to my personal life as well. Who am I being as a mother, as a wife, as a leader in my church congregation? Like, those things are these soft skills that make the difference in our life. And so I get so excited to teach this to people who have accomplished some really amazing things in their life, but they're like, it's confusing because I have this new client. She just told me this week, she was crying as she was saying, I built a $13 million business. I have everything the younger me always dreamed of. I have two beautiful kids. I'm married to an incredible man, and I am terrified. I'm anxious every day. I'm not satisfied. I'm unhappy. And it's so confusing to me because everything I ever dreamed of is literally right in front of me, and I can't even be present enough to appreciate it and let it in. And, these systems that I just shared, all of Vital play into that. And I show you how to go to the next level. And it includes operating in a radically different way that is
Yes.
rewarding and exciting and fulfilling. So
It,
what are you
it,
seeing? What are you hearing?
oh my goodness. Oh my God. I love all of this. I wish we had like hours to talk about this stuff because it's so true that, and, and correct me if I misspeak, but this is so true that what you're saying is that even if you have all of the success, all of the money, everything you've ever wanted, if you're not in the mindset to receive it,
Yeah.
right, then it's still not going to fulfill, right? Because
Yeah.
mindset is everything. I think what you're doing, it goes beyond mindset. It's like, oh,
It does.
it
That's
does.
one component for
But
sure.
yeah, but that component alone, and I hear it so much, is that, I'm making so much money, I have all the success, but I'm still not satisfied.
Yep.
You
And
know,
it's terrifying when we reach that point because we
right?
thought it was going to have us finally settle down internally. And so when you get all of that and you're more anxious, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like,
Right. And do you think that that anxiousness comes from a place of, I don't deserve to be here, or what if I lose this? What if this doesn't last? Like, where do you think that anxiousness comes from? And if you could speak to that,
yeah,
just that piece alone, the anxiety of it all.
yeah. So I call it the old operating system. In the
Yes.
old operating system, you're exchanging time for money. The more you work on something, the more your success develops. And so it takes a lot of your time and your attention in that old operating system. And we start to develop it at a young age because whether it's in school or sports, you figured out how to apply yourself a little bit more than everybody else, usually through time and
Yeah.
discipline, and it actually pays you back in some way. You get rewarded, whether it's winning the game, winning the championship, getting the awards academically,
Yeah.
getting the scholarship. And so when that works, it's this positive feedback loop. And we say, okay, that worked. Entrepreneurs can really relate to this. How many sleepless nights do you have in the beginning where you work through the night and you don't get sleep? And that does get rewarded. But what happens, Anne Marie, is as you continue to operate in that way, it becomes the very thing that will destroy you. And it starts to become your Achilles heel. And it's so counterintuitive, though, because
Right.
you're thinking to yourself, well, do I just pull back like the other people in my life who aren't as disciplined as me? That doesn't make sense. And it's true. That doesn't make sense. That isn't what you do. But what you don't realize is there's a third option. And Option 3 is a radically different operating system. It's unlike any sort of operating system you've ever seen anybody in your life utilize. And it's unique. Your operating system with option 3 is unique to you. And so that's what I help people, entrepreneurs, do, is develop their unique operating system. I have 5 steps that I walk them through. It takes us 90 days to develop it. But what happens on the other side of this, and Josh experienced this, it's radical transformation. It's almost shocking and earth shattering, but in the best possible way. And when you experience this, it bends your mind. And I remember Josh saying this when I was talking to him on a podcast interview. He was like, Katie, everything about me has changed, but I am more Josh Forty than I've ever been in my whole life. And it just like, it messes with your mind. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
So the reason we feel those things is because we're trapped in the old operating system. We have to break out of it. It's terrifying because when you step out of that operating system, all of a sudden you're being thrust into chaos, essentially. It's like you're being thrown into the cosmos and you don't know which way is up anymore. And this is why people want my help so much, is I can keep you grounded in that process as you step out of the old operating system and you start to develop the mindsets, skill sets, and the habits within this new operating system. And once you get your feet under you, it's like, look out, world, because your growth at that point becomes parabolic. And the limits that you experienced were actually because they were the limits of the old operating system. And in the new operating system, it's like this infinitely spiraling upward path. And it's really exciting. I don't like, if you sense any sort of energy from me on this conversation today, it's because of that. Like, that operating system is what lights me up, and it's what allows me to create solutions where there maybe previously wasn't one. And like, one of the most beautiful byproducts of this, Anne-Marie, is the freedom that you experience on the other side of it. And I think I may have mentioned this. I live in Puerto Rico. We have 4 beautiful children. They homeschool. I work from a desk in my bedroom. And like Monday, what was I doing? I was sitting on the beach with my kids, swimming around, playing, laughing, having so much fun. And, you know, today I'm dropping my daughter off to a sewing class. And then tonight she's going with our church group to the temple to go serve. And my other son is he goes to a Bible class in the morning, and then he goes surfing. It's just my God. It's so cool. And then he comes home and he does his school. And so it's a life that the Katie of the past could have never dreamed of. She felt trapped. Her creativity felt really stifled. And today it's like, well, what do you want? And then I have the tools to go and create that. And I should also mention, I'm happily married to an incredible man. We've been married for 23 years, and we've built this life together using this operating system.
That's so inspiring. And you absolutely, your energy is infectious. You just light up you light up when you talk about it. And I love it so much because it's clear to me that you figured it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And then you were saying, okay, I figured it out for myself. So other people must be struggling with this. I want to help other people. So when was it that you realized, wait, I am really helping people. I am very good at this, and started getting more and more clients? Like, how did that grow?
So I didn't actively pursue coaching in the beginning. Honestly, it was never on my to-do list. It was never a part of my plan or my strategy. Okay. Never. I just would have side conversations with people. Like anytime I was out in the world amongst other entrepreneurs and they would meet me, they were almost in shock that I was happy, that I was grounded, that I wasn't frantic, that I wasn't anxious. And that's not to say I didn't experience those things. I did, for sure. But they experienced something being around me that was radically different than what their life looked like. And they, started inquiring. And so I would just have conversations. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, well, we can talk, like, I don't know, once a week, and maybe you pay me $1,000. Like, that's how I got started. That's awesome. And so they were paying me for my time, and they would essentially come to the conversation. They would bring the problem, the problem that was in front of them. And I would show them how what they're doing is creating that problem. And I would show them a new way showing up in their life that would make the problem effectively go away or become irrelevant. And so in the beginning, I was still building my global business and taking clients on the side as a favor to people in a sense. I knew what it was like to be in that situation. I had wished I had had somebody like that helping me navigate it. Then when I exited my company, that's when I full time said I'm a business coach. It's even hard for me to say now.
Right.
Like, yeah.
But you're awesome, and you're awesome. I mean, you're awesome. You've helped amazing people get where they are today, and even just speaking to you, you just have such a peace about you, such a grounding, and it's really refreshing. I
Mm.
love it. But I wanted to ask you too, what you're doing now, helping people, coaching one on one, right?
Yeah.
I imagine sometimes it it must, I don't want to say suck the life out of you, but you might come across people that are sucking your energy or
Mhm.
draining your energy, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
and that happens in any, I would,
sure.
I come across people like that too. But what's your advice for people who might be dealing with that? And do you turn people away that might, not be a good fit, even though you think you might be able to help them?
Okay. In the beginning, it was draining. What was weird is in the very beginning when I was doing it as a side project, it wasn't draining. But as soon as I started saying full time that I was a business coach and I was taking people on, it was really exhausting. And I couldn't do more than I think it was 3 calls in a day, or it would totally wipe me out.
That
And what I realized, and this is huge for anybody who is coaching or consulting, like, please learn this lesson from me. The moments that were draining me were the moments where I was trying to be the hero of their story. I was trying to be the be all, do all, have the answer for everything. And I was under this false interpretation that they were paying me money for me to fix their problem. And in that scenario, Anne Marie, they are disempowered and I am the savior. And I realized that was in major conflict with, first of all, how I wanted my life to be. I didn't want somebody else to come fix my problems. I wanted someone to help me be the one who fixed the problem. I wanted to be the hero of my story. And so the moment I realized, and it's almost this energetic thing, when you enter a coaching or consulting conversation, believing that you have all of the answers and you need to fix their problems, your client is disempowered in that scenario, and it's super subconscious and subtle. When I started entering the conversation believing they had all of the answers, that they were going to be the one who was going to fix everything, and it was my responsibility to help them see it. That was it. I just had to help them see it and then empower them to go take the action that will actually produce the result. In that scenario, those conversations are crazy energizing. And my husband will testify to this. Like, I come out of my office bouncing off the walls with huge amounts of energy. And it's because I'm empowering my client. I'm not being drained by having to be the one to fix their problems.
Oh, that is so insightful and so true. And even with something, like what I do, it's more about um, making them successful and not about me making myself successful with their business. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Okay. Let's actually take what we just talked about and apply it to your business, because you have an agency, right? And so you're actively doing work for your clients.
yeah,
If
I would call it consulting because it's
Yeah.
very hands-on. Yeah.
So your job, your responsibility is to help them find out exactly what it is that they want. Because too often, like if you ever have unhappy clients, it's because they actually didn't know what they wanted.
Yes.
And I would run into this problem all the time in design, because somebody hires you, they pay you a big chunk of money, and then they say, "Make me something that's really cool." It's
Yeah.
like totally undefined. And it's like, okay, well, what I think is cool is going to be very different. And a
Right.
really good analogy is like someone hiring you saying, paint my house to be beautiful. And so they leave and you paint the house pink because you think pink's beautiful. And they come back and they're like, pink, it looks like Pepto Bismol. And you're like, you said you wanted it to be beautiful. This is beautiful. And they're like, that's not what I think is beautiful. And so they go away and then you paint it yellow. And they're like, yellow, I hate yellow. So it's about real. So your job as the consultant is to be really good at helping your client define what it is they want. If you can help your client do that, then all you have to do is go do exactly what they said they wanted, what they wanted.
Yep.
And then you, in a sense, you have done your job.
Yep.
So that's the skill set that anybody who's consulting has to develop, is you have to get really good at helping your client define what it is that they want.
Right. I love that. So true. That was awesome. And I think really helpful for anyone listening. So I want to ask you another question, completely like off topic, if that's okay.
Go for it.
What made you move to Puerto Rico? I'm just curious. I mean, I've been to Puerto Rico once. I absolutely loved it. Can't wait to go back. So I'm just curious what that was like, that move.
Yeah. We had been living in the Pacific Northwest for 18 years, and it was great. It was awesome. It was beautiful. But we were at a season in our life where we really wanted an adventure. And we had been mapping out possibilities, Anne Marie, for like 3 years, and nothing was happening. And, every once a quarter, either me or my husband would be like, hey, what if we move here? What about here? What about Denver? What about Mallorca? What about Spain? And what about Puerto Rico? It was one of the places that we would throw out. And there were multiple things that we were looking for in our life. We wanted more sunshine. We wanted an adventure. We wanted our kids to learn Spanish. And we wanted to go someplace that was brand new to all of us. So those were some of the constraints. And like I said, we'd kind of been mapping it out for a couple of years and nothing was happening. And there's power in taking action. And it was a December of 2021. So winter was starting to come on, rain, cold. And I was like, I am not doing another winter here. And so I bought a ticket for my husband to come to Puerto Rico and scope it out for us. And I said, all we need you to do, he wanted to try and do like 27 things. I said, we just need you to make one decision.
Yeah.
Is this the best move for all 6 of us? He flies out here within 24 hours of being in Puerto Rico. He calls me and he says, 100% yes. And he's a man who can see it from every angle. And usually it's like, well, here's the positive and here's the negatives. He was like, no, this is the right move for all of us. I said, do you mean that? He said, yes. I said, okay, as soon as we hang up, I'm going to buy 6 one-way tickets to Puerto Rico. And now all we need to do is find a place to live. So what I did in that moment is we made a decision and I took action on that decision. Action that kind of in a way was irreversible. Yes, I could refund all 6 of those tickets, but it was me showing to myself, to my husband, to God, that I was committed to this decision. Did we know where we were going to live? No. Did we know what we were going to do with our house? No. Did we know exactly how homeschooling was going to shake out in Puerto Rico? No. Did we know how everything would affect both of our businesses? No. If you want real transformation and change in your life, you have to be willing to step into the dark. So that's what we did in that moment. And when you make that decision and you move, the light moves with you. So all of the questions that we had, the doubts, the fears, the unknown, suddenly it was literally right at my knees. I was like, okay, now I need to figure this thing out and this thing out and this thing out. And so we did. 2.5 weeks later, we were in Puerto Rico. My husband had found us a place that was work for all 6 of us at the time. And then we started moving through the checklist of all of the other things that we had to figure out. 6 months later, we decided to sell our house. We found the attorneys, we found the CPAs, we figured out doing our businesses from Puerto Rico. Like you just figure those things out, but you have to be willing to step into the dark and take action.
It is so true. And I hear that from so many people who are super successful. For example, Russell Brunson, I'm a Russell Brunson fan, right? So at Funnel Hacking Live, he was making a comment about the fog when he would enter the stage, that he couldn't see where he was going. And he made an analogy about that, about like what you just said. It's like sometimes you can't see the finish line, but you just take a step into that fog and a little bit of fog clears. And then you take the next step and a little bit more fog clears and you just get through it, and it's basically the same thing. You might not know what's next, but you'll figure it
100%.
out.
100%. A good analogy for this is a road trip. We've all taken a road trip and you can't see the destination when you start. You just have to start moving. And it might even take a while and you have to stop and get gas, and you don't get halfway through and say, well, I didn't make it, and then turn around and go back. But in life, we do that so often. And we think we should know how long it's going to take us to get there. And if I don't get there by the next 24 months, then I'm going to turn around and go, no, we don't do that on a road trip. So why do we do that in our personal life? I don't know. We get
Fear.
scared.
Yeah, fear.
Yeah. Yeah. We get scared.
Afraid of
And
afraid of not getting there, afraid of failure.
yeah, the willingness to continue to keep going, even though maybe it didn't shake out the way that you thought. And to have the audacity to keep stepping into the dark, like, I don't know where I got that, Anne Marie, but I feel like it's one of my greatest assets. And if we can just keep going and not try to go back. There have been times in my life where I wanted to go back. Honestly, after I exited my company, I was like, whoa, what did I do? Was
Yeah.
this the right decision?
Yeah, I
And
bet.
yeah.
And some people might fault us for that, I think. And I speak from personal experience. There are people in my life that feel that that might be a bit reckless. Um,
Oh,
and
totally.
I'm sure you experience that too, right? Do you?
I mean, we have that war in our head constantly. To have the life that you want, you have to be willing to take risks.
Yeah.
And that means sometimes everything's on the line. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And there's a part of us that says, this is reckless, this is dangerous. What if it doesn't work out the way that you want? And so sometimes we do. We pull back, we shrink back, we go back. And in doing that, we create ourselves to be stuck. We're stuck because you can't actually fully go back. You can't. The past is gone. It's not there anymore. And if we're not willing to move forward, well, then we're kind of in no man's land and we're in the waiting place. So
Yeah.
being willing to move into the dark and shoulder the responsibility of taking risks. And that's the key. Voluntarily shouldering the possibility that I might fail. And you might, and I have. But like, okay, when I fail, can I learn from that experience
Yeah.
and then take that understanding and move forward from there?
If if you didn't fail, you'd never learn anything, right?
No.
Never. And I so agree with that. The risk, I mean, the reward is worth every bit of the risk,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm going to say this. I think we can all agree that failure is a chance to learn and it makes great Instagram porn. Right? So many quote cards on.
Yeah.
But when you're living that failure and things are falling apart around you, it's different. And
Yeah.
the people that you love will think you're being wise and smart to go back in those moments. But it's the people who love us the most that are going to hold us back the greatest. It's really sad. But if you can have the courage to just keep going and yeah, shoulder the responsibility of the fact that, yeah, I messed up, but I'm not going to stop trying. I'm going to keep going.
What an awesome message. That was great.
So I just want to ask you real quick because I hate that we're coming to the end of this. I hate it. I'll
Yeah.
have to have you on for a part 2 maybe. But
Sure.
so where were you raised?
I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I am the fourth of 6 kids. And it was the best childhood, Anne Marie. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up in a really safe neighborhood. I lived in a swimming suit pretty much year round, which might explain why we're in Puerto Rico now. Like the
I
cold
love
just
Puerto
is
Rico,
not
by the
my
way.
thing. And it was great. There was a lot of kids our age, and I had incredible siblings around me and loving parents, and feel really fortunate to have grown up in Phoenix, Arizona. And it's awesome to kind of create my version of that for my kids here in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's great. Okay, awesome. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how would
Yeah.
they do that if they have questions or want to work with you? What would be the best
Yeah.
way to get in touch with you?
The fastest way is to just send me a DM. And
Yeah.
especially if you're a listener to this show, send me a DM. My Instagram is katie.live, Live, because I do a lot of live video.
Yeah.
Send me a message. And, there's a range of individuals that I've been really fortunate to help. I've helped people who are in the healthcare industry, health insurance industry. I've helped people in hard money lending and in mortgage and real estate. And I've helped doctors and surgeons, like I've mentioned. E-commerce entrepreneurs, like
Yeah.
there's a whole range of individuals, and I operate on first principles. And my objective is not to be the hero in somebody's life. I don't want that. I want you to be the hero in your life. And so what I do is you come in and I show you the core principles, and then I show you how to live them. And that's the key. And that's the piece that everybody is missing. Information alone is not enough to transform your life. You have to understand how to live it. And that's the gap. And that's what I teach people, is how to actually live and implement these principles and frameworks. And that's where the transformation happens.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that's great. And I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes. Lastly, I ask everyone this question at the end of every episode. It's not about business. It's just to get to know you better. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
If you could have dinner with any one person, alive or dead, who would it be?
That is a good question.
Yeah, I get lots of different answers on that one.
Yeah. I mean, my husband for sure. He's so fascinating. I don't know, maybe this sounds cliche, but Jesus Christ. I think that
That's
would
my
be
answer.
I think that would be a beautiful, amazing, eye-opening, shocking in the best possible way conversation.
Yes.
Like what a gift that would be.
That
Yes, please.
Katie, that is my answer too when people ask me. That's so funny. I love that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we didn't talk about it, but prayer and scripture study is so much how I figured a lot of these things out, Anne Marie. And like at the end of the day, I feel like I am a messenger, and I feel so fortunate and grateful that I get to share this message. But, true principles, they come from the creator of truth himself. And so I feel so fortunate that I get to do what I do and share those principles with people.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I really do. I feel like just the way that you found your calling and the way that you were called to serve others like that is just so amazing. And like I said, you just light up, and I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been so awesome to have you here today. I thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for being a guest. Ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, this was Katie Richardson, and I will have all of her information in the show notes. And thank you again for tuning in to the Born or Made podcast.